Okay. Thank you. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Today is Tuesday, January 6th, and this is the Teaching and Learning Committee for the School District of Waukesha Board of Education. Just to start, to verify that the meeting has been properly posted.
Yes.
Thank you, Stacey. Our first order of business is to seek approval for the teaching and learning minutes from the December 2nd meeting.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Koenig. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. We have an opportunity for public comment. Did anyone sign up to speak tonight?
No.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move right into our other teaching and learning business. We have 3 items tonight. The first is seeking an approval of the Education for Employment Plan. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Gennerman and the team.
Good evening. Well, while our team members come up here, I'll just intro this. Like you said, our first agenda item is approval of the Education for Employment Plan. This is an annual topic that we do discuss. It's a highlight around this time of year that we go through and just share all the information as part of the plan. Laura Ryan is our Director of Teaching and Learning, and Molly Halbenschild is joining us tonight to provide more information. And we've already decided that Laura is presenting for this presentation, and then I'm presenting for summer school, and then she's presenting for the next one, because we have to have large conversations around who's doing the Apple AirPlay.
Good evening. Happy New Year to all of you. Molly and I are back tonight, as Ms. Gennerman said, to present to you our Education for Employment and Academic Career Planning update for 2025. So as you probably remember, state legislation requires school boards to approve an Education for Employment plan and requires districts to post this plan on their website and to update families annually. So today, Molly is going to walk us through some highlights of this plan, as you have previously been provided the plan in its entirety.
Thank you, and good evening as well. So obviously this is some of my favorite data to share. Some of this is represented on the state report card that was recently released on page 7 or 8, so that's important for me to bring it to page 1 for all of you. So the Education for Employment Plan that is in your packet does outline all the necessary state requirements, but I like to pull out some of the data pieces just to showcase what we do in Waukesha so well. So if you look at the data, 90% of our students have taken at least one CTE class in high school during the 24 to 25 school year. From those students, 75% of our seniors are considered CTE concentrators, meaning they've taken 2 or more classes within a specific program of study. And then we also have a very strong steady youth apprentice rate. We had 139 students successfully complete, and if we calculate that out, it's over 71,000 hours and over $1 million in earning as a high school student in a job that they are also going to school full-time for. So it's an awesome statistic to share.
Molly, before you go on, can you tell us what CTE stands for?
Sure.
And then as you get into these other slides, just please share with us the acronyms like PLTW and that sort of thing.
Great. So Career and Technical Education is what CTE stands for. So it's a large majority of our elective areas in the areas of business and marketing, family consumer science, tech ed, health science, and computer science is mine and everyone else's, I guess, right? So that's what CT stands for. And on this slide, new this year, our technical diplomas went up quite significantly. We also had 2 students earned associate's degrees. In part, this is our students who are obtaining their CNA license. Part of the dual enrollment programs include some technical diplomas, and we had a few students receive associate degrees through medical interpretation classes. So accessing college level classes while in high school and getting diplomas before they even leave us. We have 6 maintained regional career pathways. Those are outlined by the state's requirements of having a sequence of courses, having industry recognized credentials, work-based learning, and college level courses. We added hospitality and tourism and energy to the docket in the last year. For Project Lead the Way, that's PLTW, both of our Academies at South received Sites of Distinction again. I think this is probably the 6th or 7th year in a row, just highlighting the work that they do and offering all the different courses for our students to take. We still have a strong partnership with the Waukesha County Business Alliance. We participate in some of their programming, including Schools to Skills. They also have Healthcare Schools to Skills this year. And there's a couple different expos that they host for our students to attend. Waukesha Technical College, obviously, we partner with. We'll get a little bit more into some of the ways we do that. Our MAID partnership still is meeting monthly to look at how can we best integrate in what industry does in our tech ed classrooms, and we have some cool projects that come out of there. We're also partnering with some nonprofits with those groups as well. And then the state did roll out new standards for all of the career and technical education areas. We did a gap analysis last school year, and now we're looking at fine tuning what we teach in our classes and as we update courses, making sure they align with those new standards. As part of this work too, we look at our industry certifications. This is one of the indicators on the state report card, and you can see that there's a very strong growth in this area, something that I'm pretty proud of our teachers for taking on and integrating into their classes. We had 365 certificates earned last year by 295 students. So in some cases, students are earning more than one certificate, which is a great value add to our students. These are recognized by our industry partners as something that's a unique skill set that our students bring. And then Dual Enrollment Academy is one of the ways we partner with WCTC. Our students have the access to a number of different specific programs that help provide a series of credits aligned in a career pathway. They could include things like welding, tool and die, CNC, fire EMT, and there's more. The numbers went down a little bit, but I do think it's in part just based on a fluctuation of that large number the previous year. We have a steady number of students that participate every year and apply. It's just getting more and more competitive as a Waukesha County system. So we just didn't have as many students make it into the academy, but our application rate was still as high as in the previous years. Oh, I should say, this is important to note. Dual Enrollment Academy, they are either full technical diplomas or certificate programs. Most are 20 credits or above. That tuition, if we look at it dollar for dollar, saves our students I'm going to say this number wrong, $372,000, and they earn over 1,900 credits for college.
Another way that we partner with WCTC is that we offer in our buildings, in our high schools, transcripted credit classes. And these are classes that are WCTC curriculum, WCTC courses that our students receive credit for if they earn a C or better. But our teachers are qualified and certified to teach these courses. So it is cost neutral to the district. It does not cost us anything because our teachers are teaching them using the WCTC curriculum. This past year, we had an 88% rate. And again, saving students over $480,000 in courses at WCTC. Another way that we partner with other colleges and WCTC is through our ECCP program, so Early College Credit and Start College Now for WCTC. This shows you courses that our students are taking that when they've exhausted an area that we, like a math area, for example, they've taken all of our math courses and the next math course in line would be like linear algebra, and we don't offer that in our schools. They can apply to take it at UW through the UW system at a private college like Carroll. And so what these numbers shows you are the number of students who are taking ECCP classes at a technical college such as WCTC, at a UW school, and now our private college numbers, mostly probably Carroll, are going up as well.
Moving on, the plan also requires us to update the group on academic and career planning. Again, not new, been around since 2017 school year. But the idea is that it's student-driven, adult-supported, to get the students to understand how they are as an individual and how that can help shape their decisions in high school and beyond to plan for their future career paths. This just outlines the 4 stages that is part of the academic and career planning process. As far as our work as a district, if you want to click on the next slide. The district team meets annually to assess and progress monitor the goals of the curriculum to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students, that there's no changes that need to be made. Any minor adjustments are made to that scope and sequence at the middle school and then the high school level by grade. The lessons are now being used more frequently in junior conferencing. The website is updated annually to show those outcomes, and this is the newest thing I can tell everyone is that the state has renewed the contract for our academic and career planning tool to continue with Zello and not switch to a new one, which is great for us. They are bringing in some additional features that include some work-based learning monitoring.
So at this time, we will answer any questions that you might have, and we are seeking approval of the plan as provided in your packet. Once approved, it will be published on our website and communicated to families.
Thank you for the update. Just to direct everyone's attention to I think it was a Word document or text document that is the plan that they're seeking approval for. Any questions for the group? Go ahead.
I always like this, and then it has more questions. So all of it, because I'm fascinated by the opportunities for our kids. The youth apprenticeships or the trade programs, how many companies are we engaged with? And you don't have to answer now, but it follows up on this. I'd like to know how much it's grown. And then my final question is the liaison to WEF and how that can integrate globally with some of the things. But I do want to understand how broad of a reach in businesses we are touching in Waukesha for them, how to expand it, what are we doing, what types of programs. But looking at all of this, it's just fascinating to me as to where we're going and what they're going into. To take a look at.
I keep a historical document since I started in this role, which helps, so I can look back at some of that data. We have a lot of repeat customers. They want our students to keep coming back year after year, but we do keep adding new partners as our networks grow as well. I will say that you got to meet a few of them at the last full board meeting. We try and recognize them from time to time, and many of these companies also do interact with WEF as well, but that's a great point to make sure we're connecting them.
And the piece to that, is this outreach that you're doing on behalf of the programs that we have to see if there's businesses that can engage with our students? I mean, so
I am a part of that. The teachers that do the supervision of students is part of that. The Business Alliance helps support the work. WCTC is actually our consortium leader, so they interact with a large amount of industry partners to make sure that they understand what Youth Apprentice really is and how that they can integrate with our high school students. I think getting them to understand what it's like to hire a high school student and what job responsibilities they can actually take on is probably the biggest learning that industry partners need, because they are capable of really beautiful things. We just got to let them do it.
yeah, love it. Good, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Zenobia?
Thank you. So my question, I know every time you come to present this, I always ask this, and how do we, maybe the other side of it, how do we get more students to engage in these programs? And I guess maybe give us a little background on how they become aware of everything that's really available. I know this is probably through conversations with teachers and guidance and other things, but is there a way to get more students interested? Are there more opportunities that we're missing because we don't have enough interested people? Or I know you said some of the programs get full pretty quick, but generally speaking, how do we get more students engaged in this area?
Exposure is the number one way. I think back to my time teaching at Butler Middle School, and I had a careers class that was in 7th grade, and that was the best pivot point that I could tackle some of these topics with the students, because in some cases, you do need to forward plan that far ahead. If I want to be in dual enrollment academy my senior year, I need to have X, Y, and Z lined up. So the more often we can talk about it is obviously ideal. So we build some of this into our academic and career planning lessons. So we know that at certain pivot points, 7th, 8th, 10th-ish tends to be the parts where we can really insert that information to them. Our school counselors are super integral in these conversations as they meet with students and hear about the interest and introduce these topics to them.
Mr. Brooks?
Thank you. This is always one of my favorite presentations every year. I'm so passionate about CTE education and trades education, and I know when I was in school, we were always kind of pushed that there's only one post-high school way to success, and that's going to a traditional four-year college or university. And so I love that we are making this such a priority, and that our counselors are so engaged in showing kids that there are different pathways and different opportunities, especially for kids who might not have ever considered them. Over the summer in my day job, I got a chance to meet with some folks at WCTC, and they're just constantly very impressed with the students that we're sending them. I'm very grateful for their partnership and all of this, but I know they appreciate what we're doing to work with them as well. Do we track, when kids graduate from our school, are we tracking kids in this program? How many of them end up going to a traditional four-year university or two-year university? How many of them go to a tech school? How many of them go into, directly into a trade or another career opportunity, just to see what that follow-through is post-high school graduation?
You usually ask this question. Long and short, not really. Once we survey them on their way out, and they indicate what their intentions are. There is some data that exists in the National Clearinghouse. I don't know that we utilize it. And then the only other piece of data that I have is we have to do a follow-up survey to our CTE concentrators 1 semester after they graduate to say, this is what you said you intended to do. Are you doing that? But the response rate is not super great just because they don't exist in our system anymore. So it requires them to give us their private email address upon graduation. So.
Yeah, they're like, I'm done with high school. I don't talk to you anymore.
Some of the answers are fun. Yeah.
I mean, it'd be interesting if we were able to find that out, just because I think, how much of, for the kids who choose to go to a technical college, how much of that is because they were always kind of going towards that path and that's what drew them to this, or how much of it was, I never really considered that this was an option, but then I got really interested in this specific area and felt like this was a more affordable option or something that fit my interests better. But I get high schoolers being done with high school, so.
WCTC does provide us a booklet, I think you all received, that does show some of that data in terms of students who continue if they took a class with them and then come back to them after a certain number of years too. So it is in that booklet.
I enjoy receiving that. There's a lot of great data in there, and it does reflect the degree to which we are making those programs accessible to our students and how competitive they are. And it's nice to see the comparison data among the different districts, and you can definitely see those areas where we've got a lot of activity happening. So that's a real positive. Just to maybe reinforce Mrs. Kozlowski's question about the business engagement. I know that you do a lot of that. You all do a lot of that. But credit to you, Molly, and the small team that you work with, but mostly you, for making those relationships as positive as they are. It also, I think it just reflects greatly on our community's willingness to take in 16, 17, 18-year-olds to help them learn these trade paths and career pathways. And we couldn't do that without their partnership. So that's just a really cool way to see everybody wrapping themselves around our students' success, and I love seeing that. I think it sometimes gets lost on folks that the MAID program is very unique to Waukesha and the school district of Waukesha, and we talk about that a lot, but I think sometimes we take it for granted because the reality is it's a very successful program. It doesn't happen without those partnerships that we have. But if you don't attend the school district of Waukesha, you're not participating in that program. So that's something we should be really proud of. And I think it's also an opportunity for us to continue to help our middle school students understand what opportunities are available to them, because as early as 6th, 7th grade, we're making decisions about electives. Sorry, I said 6, 7. You're making decisions about electives that, and I happen to be talking about middle school, so it's perfect, that do influence the long-term college and career decisions that the kids are making. So I think it's good timing. I now kind of being in that span of, just post-middle school to college age kids, and lots of great conversations about the things that they're doing, the classes they're taking, and what credits and what experiences they were able to transfer with them, going through the junior conference experience and a lot of that. I think we just can't start soon enough in helping the kids and the families understand what's available to them, because we have so many unique opportunities, and a lot that it's hard in a 1-hour presentation to families, in lieu of a junior conference, to be able to communicate all that. So I think there's always room, and there's always limited capacity to do that. The last thing for me, and I think it kind of hits at, where do our students end up going and how do they utilize this? I know AP courses are a part of this, and they kind of factor into that. That 75% number that you're reflecting, that the seniors are that are involved in education for employment type activities. We offer a lot of AP credits or AP courses. I think there's, and this is not for you all, maybe it's more of a Laura Jen thing too, but I think we do need to also work on understanding how those credits apply depending on where students go. So if we have information about, X% of our students, and probably a lot more of them are going to be going into the Wisconsin system with some of the direct admission, we kind of know what they'll take, but then we also know what our average scores are. So it gives us a sense of, just because a kid is taking an AP course doesn't necessarily offset that. But I think our performance in some courses is exceptional. And so we could look at that like, if a basic science is required as part of a core curriculum in a state school, and we've got 80% of our kids that are getting a 3 or better, then that's pretty impressive. But I think there are a few classes, I think, that may or may not be replaced in some cases by the college courses, the UW, the Carroll, or the Marquette courses that aren't necessarily accessible. Those are incredibly value add. And so those transcripted courses, or those direct enroll college courses, the benefit is, when you're in the course that you're getting credit for a college course. And I think those transcripted courses at our high school level are also something that kids might not even realize that they could get credit for that if they could transfer that transcript over. So anything we can do to just keep communicating with them about the value of doing that, because I think there's some opportunity to decide to take a transcripted course if you understand what that really means when you're building a schedule, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, anything that we can do to keep the kids as well informed as possible, I think, is a huge advantage. Mrs. Koenig.
Thank you. I just want to emphasize, too, that the success of this program in Waukesha really is a testament to who's behind it, because I know that the two of you are extremely, committed to this, and the exposure you give our middle school students is probably the key. I mean, recently you took all the middle school students to the Waukesha Area Trade Alliance, to which for a living, I'm a youth career planner, and I was there, and I saw all of our Waukesha kids coming in. It was really interesting because we had the largest representation, we meaning Waukesha, of middle school students that were there. A lot of students were from area high schools, but there was a huge amount of middle school, and the majority of them were all Waukesha middle school students. And it's kind of like you said, that's where the exposure begins. I mean, even though some of it might have been lost on them, the fact that they could hammer in a nail, or they were able to kind of, try these different tools, that is, for some students, a place where they realize, wow, I kind of liked that. I could do that. And so it is the success. I know we're close to WCTC, but it's the commitment that you two and your group, that everyone that is involved brings to it and exposes those middle schoolers, because by the time they come in, they really already are thinking I might want to do something like this. And they're not, again, like you said, Mr. Brooks, and I was in that same, era where you got to go to four-year college. They're already coming in and looking at things differently and thinking, okay, we have alternatives. I have a different path I might want to take. So it is definitely, your passion too that makes this work as well. So thank you for involving our middle school students the way you do to get that going so early.
It's the teachers that do the hard work. And I having taught at Butler and having that experience myself, it is the best moment when you see those light bulbs happen and they connect to the learning, and that's why we do this work, right?
Well, thank you both, and thank you everyone who's involved.
This is so core to our mission of getting our kids college, community, and career ready. So thank you for all the effort that you put into it. Mr. Zenobia.
I would motion to approve the education for employment plan as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Anything more? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next topic tonight is discussion and possible action on the summer school program.
Yes, so tonight we have Mary Garcia Velez joining us to talk about summer school. If you recall, earlier this school year, we had a little bit of a summer school 2025 celebration, just highlighting all the great things and great opportunities. While we were preparing for that presentation, we were already planning for summer 2026. And Mary just brings a great enthusiasm to this work. And so tonight what we want to bring forward is information on the 2026 summer school program, as we have it here proposed for discussion and possible action with you.
So as Jen pulls the presentation up, I know all of you are thinking about summer school because it's 37 degrees and cloudy out, and it is only 160 days away till the first day of summer school if it is approved tonight.
I would say too, as we get started, we talked earlier tonight about all these great offerings for our students, and I just want to highlight one of our co-op students at Blair. Kara Johnson is responsible for putting together our summer school logo. She is a co-op student that works 15 hours a week, does a lot of our digital advertisement pieces, our social media pieces, and so Mary and I are putting our heads together around some sort of graphic, and not always my wheelhouse. Sometimes it is, sometimes. But Kira did a great job, and so you can see her, growing in this field that she'll pursue later on too.
Okay, so you heard a little bit about our highlights in October, as Jen said, when we got together. We have consistent leadership. I've been in this position 3, maybe 4 years, but I have also been the principal of summer school for many more years beyond that. So we'll be doing that work again this year as the director. And then we really have a district-wide effort. We have HR from the district, we have enrollment from the district, and we have been meeting in hopes that this will be approved to be planning for the upcoming year. So just that team effort is really great. We always look at what went well last year, what maybe was a little bit rocky last year, and then how we can make it better for the upcoming year. So our dates that we're looking at right now are the 15th of June, which is really starting summer school right after the school year ends, which is exactly what we did last year. And then our ending dates for much of summer school will be the 10th of July, but then that those get-ahead classes always last longer, 2 weeks longer, so that will be ending on the 24th of July. So those are our upcoming dates at this time.
Can you speak to just the thought around the 15th, because it is right after students?
Right, so just in finding staff members, oftentimes if we're pushing off, it's difficult to have staff members that will do it. So in getting Also in getting students, a lot of times parents want kids right away jumping in, but having that starting right away and then 4 weeks in, it's just a lot easier. Also, if we're pushing it, then we are pushing the get ahead classes to the very last day of July. So jumping in as we did last year, we started right away last year. It really was a great way, and a lot more people were interested in jumping on board to staff, to be able to staff those classes. So our sites for this upcoming year, we're going to have 3 sites. We spent a lot of time just trying to think about where are the best places, given there might be a couple of changes I heard about in the school district of Waukesha. So as we were looking at those changes, we had to think about where our schools would be. So for elementary, we're going to have 3 sites instead of 4, which we have done in the past. Banting, Higher, and Summit View will be those sites. Our secondary site, we will have both the middle school and the high school at South. We have done that in the past, and so we hope to do that. Again, that will take away from buildings who might be in a bit of a transition. So we found that doing both the middle and the high school at South would be great. So with those schools, we're working on having an easier enrollment procedure this year. Choice can still be accommodated, but what we're going to say is, for instance, if you are, certain schools will be assigned to Banting. So we would say, let's say Hadfield and Hillcrest and anybody from open enrollment, all will be assigned to going to Banting. We'll have specific schools, just like we're doing boundaries. These schools will all be going to Banting. Now, will people be able to get special permission to go to another school? Let's say a teacher's teaching at another school that's not in that area. Yes, they will be able to, but we'll have certain schools that are assigned who don't have summer school that are assigned to a school who does. This will also greatly help with transportation. So this year with transportation, what we're going to do is we're going to say in advance, these are where the transportation sites are. If Hadfield kids are going to Banting, they'll be stop at Hadfield. But then we are also going to be looking at other high areas, neighborhoods where a lot of kids are, to have a few other stops. This will really boost the ability for kids to go by having those transportation sites. We did it much differently last year in that parents first told us when they wanted, whether they wanted a transportation or not, and then later they found out where those transportation spots were, which wasn't helpful. Sometimes it was farther away than the school was. So this will really open things up, I think, for a lot of people as far as transportation goes.
We're also going to ensure that regardless of the classes, when families enroll, that everyone is using Infinite Campus. Sometimes with our jump starts, we didn't always use Infinite Campus, but we're hoping the school assignment piece also helps with that enrollment process. We have heard sometimes that Infinite Campus is, not always user-friendly or the best to understand, but we will be working to ensure that families are all using Infinite Campus, so we have all the student records where we need to at the end of summer school for that financial report that we send to DPI.
Mm-hmm. So what are our next steps? If summer school is approved this evening, we'll be recruiting staff. Oftentimes, all the principals have lists at the end of the summer school from the year previous. Then we just go right from those lists for the intent to return, and we're able to send those in emails out. So we'll be recruiting staff. We'll be establishing the course offerings that are going to be much more aligned than they have been in the past. Completing that summer school guide, and that will come when the other things happen, and then updating the website and advertising. So along with the advertising on the websites, we're also going to be talking to principals about making sure that this is a blurb. Please make sure you're putting these into your s'mores or your newsletters so that families know these are the dates that you can sign up for summer school, so families are well informed in a variety of different avenues. And then this is just really, there are so many different opportunities at summer school. We have readiness classes, we have enrichment classes, we have credit recovery, get ahead, band, drama, we have EB Shirts camp, speed, strength, and agility. We have the kindergarten jumpstart, which is new kindergartners so that they get to know what kindergarten's all about, level up, which is middle school, and just so many more opportunities. Are there any questions?
First.
I look at this, and when we talked about even the highlights when you were here in October, the summer school is something we do really well. We do this really well. And it's exciting to see. I just actually have one question about transportation, just because that's the topic. What did we do for transportation last year?
So we did it differently last year. What we did was, so if you're a family, I just said, do you want transportation? They checked that, yes, they wanted transportation. And then later, we told them this is where the bus stops were. But in many instances, the bus stop that was offered was farther away than just going directly to the school. So this year, I'm going to be able to see, okay, I'm going to Hadfield, I'm going to have a stop right at Hadfield, that's where the bus is going to be. I'm going to know for sure, I'm definitely going to take the bus because I know where the stop is.
Got it, okay.
Along with the schedule too, you know, like so they can plan ahead if families want to carpool together, like, hey, we have to be there by this time, I can do drop off, someone else can do pickup. So we're hoping having that information in the program will help families and more kids, be a part of the learning.
And I think that last year when we were just counting the people on the bus, in the middle schools, more people were using the buses. In the elementaries, many said that they would use it, but then the numbers were very low. So really, we want people to know in advance, so we're allowing more people the opportunity to come to summer school on the bus.
Great, that's perfect, thank you.
The transportation also, I just want to mention that this really started during COVID, and we initially used ESSER funds to support that. But as a leadership team, we want to invest in the students' learning throughout the summer and thought it was a good investment in continuing the transportation. So we're going to continue to monitor ridership. Like Mary said, last year, there wasn't great ridership. Mary got on some buses and she counted the kids. There wasn't many. And so we're going to, like she said, we'll take a little bit different approach this year, but we are going to continue to count and monitor ridership. And we know things come up, but we just want to make sure that if it is needed, we're providing it. But if it's not needed, that we're not providing more than we need to.
I would like to know a little bit about how the staffing process works. You have people that are returning that you automatically assign, or that you have new people that are interested. What does that look like?
So at the elementary level, I can just tell you what I've always done is at the end of the year, I say I have a form that says intent to return. What class were you teaching? Do you have an intent to return? If you want to return, do you want to teach a different class? And I typically know year after year, I have a very similar staff. They know how things run at Banting. And other principals that have come on new since I've been the director, I've asked them to be sending that out. And so then it's very slick. In January, or whenever things are approved, then I'm sending out to all the people that were on that list, are you interested? And then if classes are still open after that, I'm reaching out.
Okay. Do you ever have any trouble filling those positions? Or?
So I would say a couple of years ago, yes.
Okay.
And when we did have trouble, then we allowed, instead of one teacher to teach all 4 weeks, which is really what we'd like, we would say to get people in, if you'd like to split, do 2 and 2. Last year, it was a little bit easier.
So are all of our summer school staff current teaching staff?
That's a good question. Some of them are. I would say most of them are School District of Waukesha employees. Some of them are student teachers that have just finished, and then they jump in where we have a need. In some instances, it's people from outside the district, but really more recently, I would say, we're filling those positions with all Waukesha teachers. I'm trying to think if I had anybody last year that was a returning person that wasn't from Waukesha, and I don't think that I had. Whereas I would say 5 years ago, I had more people from outside the district.
It's nice to have staff that actually want to engage throughout the summer. I know it's a different environment, and it feels different, but we're also asking a lot of them to continue through the summer.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Anything else? This has possible action on it. Any interest?
I motion to approve the summer school plan for summer of 2026 as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Kozlowski. Okay, any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes 5-0.
Thank you so much. In 160 days, we will be having summer school.
Thank you, Mary. Begin the countdown now. Have a good night. Good night. All right, our last item of business tonight is discussion and possible action on the middle school schedules. We have our middle school principals joining us tonight. Welcome. Jump right back into the second day of the new semester. Not the new semester yet, sorry. New year. Welcome.
So joining us tonight is Laura Gennaro, principal at Butler, Kent, for principal at Horning, and then Rob, who is our principal at Les Paul. Together, the three of them have been really working with myself and teaching and learning directors over the last year, Rob even longer, on the middle school schedule. New this time presenting with us is Laura Ryan. As you know, she has led through some changes of the high school schedule, and just with change in leadership, we've used her to really help guide us to be more aligned with the high school and just kind of help take any lessons learned from the high school as we're working through this. So tonight, we are going to go over a few things. First, we want to just start off by reviewing what we shared last year. We had presented at two different committee meetings, one in May and one in June. So we're going to just quickly review the information that was shared then. And then the second piece, we want to share with you what's been done since May. And particularly, we're going to talk more extensively around electives. We're going to talk about student instructional time and those guaranteed curriculum resources in our multi-tiered system of support. We're going to also talk about teacher instructional time as well, and then transportation. And third, we are ready and excited to bring to you a recommendation from the team and have some conversation with you and answer any questions that you may have. I'm going to get us started with the review. Like I said, last school year, so May 6th of 2025, this team came forward and really shared information with this group around some of our initial work on this topic of middle school schedule. So this really focused on, first of all, our teaching and learning priorities that stem throughout all that we're doing. Establishing our why around why are we looking at a middle school schedule. We could just leave it as is and continue on. But really, we wanted to focus on ensuring that all students have time for their guaranteed and viable curriculum opportunity, as well as students who need intervention or enrichment opportunities, that we're doing that within a multi-tiered system of support. At that time, we overviewed for you the current schedule, which you see here at the bottom with the different blocks of teal and orange. This is showing 6th grade, 7th grade in the middle, and 8th grade at the right. One of the things we brought forward was the discrepancy or difference in amount of instructional time for math between 8th grade and 6th and 7th grade, as well as the amount of time for electives in 8th grade compared to 6th or 7th grade. At that meeting, we also share with you some research that we had been doing and really how we narrowed it down to two viable schedules, one being a modified block and the other being a 6-period day. The modified block, different from the high school block. High school block is 3 classes a day, every other day. With this modified block, what we were proposing and discussing was the idea of to continue more like the schedule is right now, and extending that math time where English or our language arts classes and math classes are longer than any other classes. Those classes would meet every day, where electives would meet every other day. So this was some of the initial information that we shared at that meeting. So then a month later, we came back and we talked a little bit more about our teaching and learning priorities, and also just refresh the group around the the history of our middle school conversations. We all kind of chuckled around it as we came up and said, Rob's been a part of these conversations many times. But the reality is we wanted to share that with all of you. We know some of you weren't in your seats or in the district at that time. We also shared student outcome data as it relates to student assessments. And then we also went more deeper into the current schedule as well as our look-fors that you see here on the right of the slide. And those look-fors and those whys of why we're doing this continue to be those driving forces for us with everything that we do. Our focus is on our students and what they're learning and their experiences at that middle school level. At this presentation, we also shared a little bit more of that vision around having electives. Having the electives be a pathway. We had shared that currently electives are offered a variety of ways. So regardless of the elective, they can be offered every other day, possibly every other day quarterly, every day semesterly. I could just keep going. And that really complicates our scheduling system, and we believe we can find some efficiencies and align better with the high school by having our electives operate all on an every other day approach similar to the high school level. So also at June, you may remember that we had a lot of other conversations going on around optimizing the future. We felt that it was best at that time to really pause our team work with the teachers and really wait until we had more definite answers around optimizing our future. If you recall, at that time, there was conversations about maybe not having middle schools, and what we did is we paused the work with the teachers, but behind the scenes, we really continued to dig in and investigate every different angle, every different option that we had found within these viable schedules between this modified block and the 6-period day. So we continue to work behind the scenes, and that's what we're here tonight, is to share with you a lot of the work that's been done. So as I shared earlier, we're going to focus on the electives, we're going to focus on the 6-period day, and then we're also going to talk about instructional time for students as well as teachers, and then ultimately have that recommendation for us to discuss.
So as I came on to this team, one of the things they asked me was about what kind of lessons did we learn from the high school transitioning their schedule. So I'll say probably the main lesson that we learned when we started our researching different schedules for the high school is that there's no research out there that can prove that one schedule is the best for student achievement. Similarly, there's no research that says that any amount of minutes of a course is best for student achievement, or even class size is best for student achievement. The truth of it is, if there was, we'd all be doing that, and there's really pros and cons to all of them. So what we at the high school really decided what was best for us and what worked for our students was consistency. And that was a consistency in a schedule, which is really why we went to the 4 blocks. So they have 4 blocks on one day and 4 blocks on the next day. Same time period for all of the courses really provided consistency for the teachers. We also found that extending that time period was really beneficial to lab settings or performance-based classes like music. That 40 any minutes is not enough for any of that type of class. We've also found consistency in an ABD elective schedule might best fit, if that's what the middle school chooses, would best fit and align to the high school and make traveling teachers, again, a more consistent routine for them, schedule for them. At the high school too, we also learned that we really wanted a common Tier 2 or advisory time for all students. So we could meet the needs of all students, and all teachers were available and all students would be available at that time to meet their needs, especially for students who are not meeting grade level benchmarks. We also learned that best practice tells us that school-wide literacy is necessary for students to learn reading skills, writing skills, in all of the content areas, not just in reading or not just in ELA classes, but we need to learn how to read and write like a historian, read and write like a scientist, read and write blueprints. And we needed time in our classes in order to build that disciplinary literacy time. So I think I began saying by it's not the schedule, so then what is it? Well, we think it's the magic of having research-based curricular resources that's common across all schools, really led by teachers who have a mastery in lesson planning, a lesson planning framework like GRR, gradual release, who have training in with core strategies and for student engagement. And so that is what we've really focused on at the high school and at the middle school, to be honest, is building those skills in both GRR, lesson planning, and strategies to cognitively engage our students. So now our principals are going to take us through and talk a little bit about middle school electives, instructional time, resources, and that advisory time.
All right, thank you, Laura. So I'll present the slide that we're currently on shows our current schedule and currently what we're working on. Jen had mentioned before, one of the challenges that we have is actually building the master schedule around our electives, mainly because our electives run every day for the whole year, every other day for the whole year, every day for the semester, or every day for the quarter. So we have all these different strange pieces that are kind of fighting and playing against each other. So our plan and how we'd like to move forward towards is more of a pathway system. And so now I'm going to kind of walk you through what a sixth grade, at least at the start, would look like, because this one's a little bit different than what would happen at seventh and eighth grade. So at the sixth grade level, we are looking at, and this was all developed, by the way, in collaboration with the other coordinators. This was also done by looking at state statutes. So there's a whole bunch of other things behind the scenes that gets us to this point. And so what it would look like is A, B day, let's say an A day, you would have PE. On the B day, you would have music. Up on there, we have 4 different choices. Laura will talk about that in a little bit and go into a little bit more depth with that. The piece that's really neat, and I think this really hits on what was presented in just a little while ago, was about exposure into classes. And so in sixth grade, right now, it's just kind of, you pick a couple things and off you go. What we are proposing is that we have a sixth grade wheel that will provide exposure to world cultures, family consumer education, tech ed, business, and art 6. So all sixth grade students would get that exposure of those classes within their first year at middle school to help them make better choices for when they're in seventh graders and eighth graders, which is something that we will come back to shortly to look at that a little bit closer. But this is what the sixth grade year would look like for our students. Now Laura's going to talk a little bit more about music.
So one addition that you'll notice is in sixth grade that we would like to add the addition of a music appreciation class. It's part of the state requirement for them to take music. We had hearing a little bit of feedback from some students and families that they did not want to be required to take a music performance class. For financial reasons, possibly for reasons of students who simply were not interested in performing music, but still interested in music. I think what middle schooler is not interested in music right now? And so in working with our secondary music coordinator, we discussed how there used to be a general music class. And it wasn't great. It wasn't great. I mean, everyone will tell you that. But so as we are looking at the state standards and we are looking at some courses that other schools offer, and honestly, colleges are requiring some music appreciation classes, that we're really excited about building a class that is rigorous and is an academic study of the history of music, the history of the different genres of music, music and technology. Technology plays such a role in music today. And so really creating that as one of the options. Students who would like to play instruments still will choose band. Students who would like to sing will still choose choir. That this is just one option for those students who do not want to perform musically.
All right, so back to 7th and 8th grade now. So we lined out the different pathways, and so PE is one of the classes that is required across the board. But outside of that, students would then be able to make some choices. They'd be able to pick 3 other classes that they would take. These classes would run on an A-B schedule for the entire year, which again simplifies and gets rid of that challenge of having all these different electives running at different times. So these pathways, again, this was also worked with the coordinators to kind of look at the alignment pieces. And with these, while we are calling them pathways, I want to make sure that we're super clear on this part, is that let's say you are really into foods as a 6th grader, you took it, you got that experience, you're like, hey, I want to take this as a 7th grader, you take it in 7th grade. The pathway is for the 7th grade year, you would take Culinary 7 every other day for the year. When you get into 8th grade, that does not mean you are locked into 8th grade culinary, okay? So if you took art and you're real passionate about that and you want to jump into culinary as an 8th grader, you are able to do that. So these aren't rigid pathways, they're just pathways for the year. And so that 6th grade will give them that experience and the exposure. They will be able to make some choices that are just for the year every other day on here. The A-B schedule, and also like why are we doing that? One of the other pieces that it allows for teachers to do a better job at if they're at the high school and at the middle school. We do have teachers that go between schools. Right now, the way it works, teacher might come to Horning in the morning and then they might jump to South in the afternoon. They lose a lot of time with just moving between buildings. So instead what we could look at is on A days, you are at one building, B days, you're at the other day for the whole day. So it would make that a huge efficiency that we would get with the ABs. The other part about having a high school teacher in the middle school, not that they're all traveling teachers, but we do have some, that can help bridge more connections with the middle school, that they know, hey, I know this person, and when I get to high school, I can take classes with them. It can help sell those courses and say, hey, this is the trajectory that you can be on. And again, it goes with the CTE, College and Technical Education, that we just heard about before, and try to really make as many of those bridges as we can about some other possible futures for our students. So that's what the electives would look like at the 7th and 8th grade level. And I'm going to turn this over to Jen to talk a little bit about instructional time.
Can I just jump in
Yep.
quick? 2
course.
points I want to make is, so as Kent is saying that these are pathways, these would not be the titles of the courses. We're not sure exactly what the titles of the courses would be yet, but for example, in family and consumer ed, there would be a culinary, kind of like a foods path, and then there'd be something more about health sciences or science and education, child development path, right? So those courses still would need to be fine-tuned and actual titles. The other thing I wanted to point out is foreign language. Because this would be an elective that would be offered every other day, it would take both 7th and 8th grade in order for them to complete the first year of Spanish or the first year of French for high school credit. So French 1A would be like the first semester. So 7th grade, they would do the first semester of French or the first semester of Spanish. And then 8th grade, they would do the second semester of Spanish or French. I will tell you that our high school foreign language teachers are excited about this because they feel their students will come in much better prepared to take Spanish 2 than they have been coming with it all kind of condensed into 1 year quickly.
I would highlight too here that many of these topics are currently classes. So for example, in Art 7 or Art 8, what would you cover? We would be taking those current classes that are drawing, ceramics, jewelry and metals and jewelry, and that those are part of Art 7. And so you have that many options in that area of art to really dabble into different things, not solely go into just jewelry and metal at one grade specifically for a semester or year. It gives them more of a option to spend more time in the subject and then maybe fine tune a little bit more their focus area at the high school level. So here we want to talk about our current instructional time. As we've shared previously, our ELA and our math blocks are 86 minutes, and that is every day for 6th and 7th grade. It is not that for math in the 8th grade. Our everything else is 43 minutes in our current schedule. And that we've shared with you, that's over on the left, that little visual. The orange blocks are the electives. During that, I want to talk a little bit more specifically about our ELA class and our math class. So current resources that we have for ELA is My Perspectives or SAVAS. And the instructional recommended time is 40 to 80 minutes. Within this time, there's a gradual release approach, and then they do utilize mini lessons and modeling, peer group tasks, and learning activities that are independent as well as group activities. In math, we have Amplify or Desmos that students are using. The recommended instructional time is 45 to 60 minutes. Within that time is a warm-up, an interactive activity for students, and synthesis of that topic or content that they are working on. Again, there's some independent practice, there's small group instruction within that time in math as well as in the ELA class. In addition to these two, what was purchased a few years ago, 3 to be exact, was a subscription for 3 years to a program called IXL. And I think while we weren't all at the table when that decision was made, I think sometimes we have different understandings of why. I'll summarize my understanding is that the use of IXL with math, the idea was that we are going forward with a more rigorous curriculum in math, and we wanted to be sure we had something to help our teachers and students fill those gaps. IXL offers instructional activities in math as well as ELA. And so in both ELA and math, when they do have the longer 86 period, students have time for specific IXL work right on their device. My understanding was that it was never meant to be a long-term solution. We invest heavily into a research-based curriculum like we have here, and that there are lots of resources that we probably haven't even started to use because we have IXL. Over the time, with the use of IXL, it can be used greatly, and it can be just kids sitting there using it. And as with anything, you have that wide range. We do have some places where it's maybe used 15 minutes a day for intentional skill and drill, but we also have some places that we've observed that it might be taking more of a tier 1 resource look, that the students are spending more time on IXL than we would prefer. This is the 3rd year in the contract, and our intention from teaching and learning is to not renew with IXL. I'm not saying that it's not a valuable resource. What I'm saying is that I would like our teachers and students to really use all the resources within the math and ELA curriculum that has many things that can be used to differentiate within that classroom time. One thing that we've worked on over time is also our approach to our multi-tiered system of support. So, long time ago, teachers just taught, here's my class, I'm teaching this. Everyone else, if you're special ed, you go out. If you're this, you go out. And really, it's all about bringing the kids in and ensuring that we have multi-tiered systems of support for students. And so, what that really means is that when a student is struggling or ready for some enrichment, we have a structure in place that we can address those individual student needs. This is very similar to what Laura talked about at the high school with that homeroom or advisory time. And like Laura said, the research around different things, is maybe not there specifically around a specific schedule, but in all of our learning and work we've done around Hattie and effect size, a strong multi-tiered system of support has a 1.4 effect size when 1 is the average. I may not be quoting that exactly right, but you see the chart there. It's over in the blue section as far as impact on student learning. And as a system that's really is aligned with our priorities and what we've been working on for the last 3 years to ensure that our students have and are experiencing reading and writing opportunities. We've been doing the book study around taking action, the gradual release framework. So this is really just our next step along this path. And I reference here at the bottom right is part of our look-fors and our schedules was to not only have time to provide the instruction for the viable curriculum, but also time to meet students' needs in a more multi-tiered system approach way. And so what I want to show here is just try and like visually walk through what this change would look like. So and the teacher in me wants to stand up. Currently, let's just talk about math, for example. In 6th and 7th grade, math is 86 minutes. So right now, they are using Amplify or Desmos. I'm not sure why there's two names.
It changed names.
Okay. So they would be using that, and currently, right now, teachers have the opportunity to have students engage in additional math learning with IXL. And like I said, it might be 5 minutes at one place, and maybe it's a little longer than we'd like in some other places. But this is what they've been using. We don't have a structure in place that says, you know what, these 10 kids are really struggling on this topic. How can we use our teachers as the best resource to provide small group instruction to them on those essential standards? And so with this schedule change, what we would be proposing is that our students continue with their math learning. A 6-period day would allow them ample opportunity to go through the content. And rather than having time for IXL, what we would do is our advisory in a 6-period day would be a bit longer. And what we'd be able to do is not only do the academic career planning, the academic social behavior, the AVID school-wide strategies during that homeroom, we would then structure in 3 days a week that we can use for that Tier 2 intervention. So those students that are in the universal curriculum and they maybe haven't mastered some of those essential standards, or they're ready for enrichment, then our teachers, like the high school, would be pulling kids and grouping and collaborating together around providing additional instruction to those students. Right now, teachers are doing advisory. It's very short. I believe it's 20 minutes, and it's really focused on the academic career planning, the social and academic behaviors. But what we're finding is that it's so short. By the time the kids get in there, it's like a quick turnaround and then they're out the door. And so that's where with this proposal, the advisory would be a little bit longer. And so here's a graphic that will talk more about what does that really look like if we were to use that advisory time different.
So we currently have 5 days of advisory that we have the academic planning, we have that school-wide AVID and the Navigate 360. We've even incorporated some IXL so the kids can do their diagnostic in there. And what we found is it's been really beneficial, but we're kind of missing that piece of whole school, everyone all hands on deck, getting kids in front of the teachers they need to be in front of, and getting that opportunity to have some responsive small group instruction, whether it's reteaching, whether it's pre-teaching something that's coming up, whatever the case might be. We just don't have the flexibility to do that in our current schedule. In ELA and math, there is some time, but in every other area there is not. So this would open up then, if you look at the schedule up on the board, that we could still do some of the pieces that are really important. We just pare them back a little bit, which is very doable. And then we would open up Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays to create that responsive small group instruction, where teachers could look at data, decide who in my class needs different skill-based. Through PLCs, they'd collaborate, create small groups of students then that would work with teachers on specific skill sets or understandings or review, whatever the case might be. And it would be a very collaborative process where we'd be digging into data on a regular basis, seeing where kids are at, how can we respond, and also an opportunity for enrichment, which a lot of times we don't have the time for, again, because of the limit with the class time. So we're really excited for the opportunity here. It would be very targeted support, but we did feel it was really important to keep some structure and organization and like culture building in there. So the Mondays and Fridays is kind of the compromise of we can still do planner checks and AVID binder checks and all the good things that we've been doing, but just pared back a little bit to really target then specific needs of students, whether it's enriching or intervening.
This team really also, if we move forward with some of these changes, this team has already given thought to what that would look like in a school year where starting the school year, a lot of the time in advisory is used for safety routines and drills and just like practicing some of those basics and building that school community. And so as the school year goes on, after the first few weeks in September, they would ease into this schedule. It wouldn't be like all right away. So we'd get students used to it.
So if you can remember last spring, as we're moving through the timeline, the question was asked, what schedule did we want? I think we were all pretty much in the same spot. And at that time, what we responded with and what I responded was we wanted a schedule that would have the greatest positive impact for our students and our staff. We wanted a schedule that would support their success, support our curricular resources that we invested in, what would support our staff and our community as a whole. From there, as a team behind the scenes, as Jen said, we continued to work, we continued to ask questions, garner feedback from staff, from students, what would be the best possible opportunity and structure to move forward with. As we continued to dig in, some concerns arose with the modified block. What were some equalizations of time frame? What would it mean, for example, of a student in middle school taking integrated 1 compared to a student at the high school taking integrated 1, which is 90 minutes every other day, where if we went to a modified block, students would have 90 minutes in 8th grade and would have twice as much time to accomplish the same course requirements. So looking at that inequality of time and what did that look like. Other concerns came across of how would this modified block look in traveling, how would it look like in supporting staff. So trying to look at what, not only just barriers, but what were opportunities. Given our additional research, analysis, questions, feedback from staff, we continually gained more and more confidence as what you see on the right side of the screen of the 6-period day and of the structure that it would provide for our system, for our students. The current curricular resources we have align greatly in terms of time, in terms of opportunity to utilize them to their fullest extent and with the best fidelity. Our student benefits, the learning isn't fragmented. Come in for 44 minutes, by the time you're ready to roll, you're back out the door. Science and social studies having the same time as reading and math, so you can get into those exploratory inquiry things that our resources are designed and meant to do. We can look at targeted support with the advisory for all. Students' transitions are reduced slightly, and we know at middle school, transitions lead to fun. We also want to make sure that we're focusing our instruction in our established routines. How do we use that in advisory to set it up to even maximize our instructional time within classes because of the power of advisory? As a school, our resource efficiency, the fidelity within curriculums across sites, ensuring access for all students and meeting the needs of all students. We're fortunate that we had Laura as part of this to be able to analyze those instructional minutes. And what she wants to be able to do is to share with you that further in-depth look at time.
So once we started leaning toward a student schedule, we realized that the 6-period schedule would impact teacher schedule and teacher time. And we realized it would decrease middle school teacher prep time, and it would increase student load and student number of classes some middle school teachers were teaching, but it would also decrease for many teachers. So that just led us to look at a system-wide comparison of teacher workload. So these are things that would really make up a teacher workload. So I'll try to walk you through it as best I can. The top row, the first one is teaching minutes. This is how many minutes a teacher is in front of their students. It includes the classes they teach and their 30-minute advisory period. Then we'll also look at how many sections are these teachers teaching. We'll look at student load based on 25 as a typical class number because classes vary. We are in classrooms today and they can vary from 15 kids to 29 kids. So typical class we're just going to say is 25. And then how many prep minutes. So the very first line, horizontal, white, is elementary. Our elementary teachers are in front of their students for 320 minutes a day. So each of these is a day in the life of a teacher. Hard to say how many sections they teach since the kids are there the whole time, so we just kind of broke it up into a minimum of 6. You know, though they do the reading, writing, math, science, they probably do a whole lot more. Typical class load, 25, we're going to say, and including prep time during the day plus the time that they are contracted to be there before and after school prep time, is 90 minutes for elementary teacher. The three colors, the pink, the brown, and the green, are all of our current middle school teacher schedule. So it really determines, it depends on what you teach. If you are an ELA or math teacher, you are in front of your kids right now at middle school, 283 minutes, but you are only teaching 3 blocks of students because they're an extended block of 86 minutes, which means your student load is 75 at a typical 25, with 141 prep minutes. Now, if you're a science or a social studies teacher or some other electives, you are in front of your students for 283 minutes, but you teach 6 classes of a shortened then from 86 to 43 minutes, so you have a student load of 150 students with prep of 141 minutes. If you are an every other day elective teacher like tech ed would be, you're in front of your kids every day for 283, but you have 6 classes one day and 6 classes the next day, so 12 classes of students at 25 would be around 250 to 300 kids with 141 preps. So that's all varying different right now for a middle school teacher, depending on what you teach. Elementary is all the same. I'm going to jump down to the white high school. High schools are all teachers are all the same. They teach 3 of the 4 periods of 90-minute block and a 30-minute advisory. So high school would have 3, they're in front of their students for 300 minutes. At 25, so they have 6 classes total. That would be 150 students for the 2 days, the A day, B day, with 115 minutes of prep time each day. The yellow is what we are proposing to make it equitable for all middle school teachers and to equalize the time across all content areas. It would increase the instructional time that they are in front of their students to 324 minutes. They would teach 5 out of 6 periods, and those periods would be extended to 59 minutes compared to the 43, but then it is a decrease for math and ELA, which Ms. Gunnerman already kind of explained. If I'm an elective teacher now, I'm not teaching 12 sections anymore. I'm teaching 5 each day. So 5 on A day and 5 on B day. So I have 10, which will reduce my student load. Because they are teaching 5 out of 6 sections, it does decrease prep minutes to 95 minutes, which makes it more approximate to the elementary and the high school teacher load. So this was just a system of where are we at each level, and what are we proposing? How much of a change would that be? And how different would it be?
I would add too that we partnered with Ms. Thede in Human Resources around all these numbers and math that left to right, right to left, up and down, all different ways to really, because there's so many different ways you could calculate it, but in her recent time, she's been doing the time of instructional time in front of kids.
So what does it mean, really, when all of this comes together? So first and foremost, it's the students. How does this look for a student? And if you look on the left side, kind of breaking it down in 6th grade, some of the nuances to the grade levels at mid-level. So in grade 6, the FIAD is a required piece as well as music. So if you're kind of working side to side here, in the color-coded grid, that's the time on the clock. What does it look like during the school day for a student? So for example, a 6th grader starts their day with math class, goes off to English language arts. The line you see where it says elective 1 and 2, this is how it's broken up into that A and that B day. So for our discussion purpose now, think of it as FIAD is 1, music is 2, and that's how they go. They would head off to lunch potentially based on schedule, how it gets built. Then they would be in an advisory. They could come back to their elective. This would be numbers 3 and 4. This would be that elective experience where they're going through all of the different pathways. So just to break it into like quantitative units, that's why we use the 1, 2, 3, and the 4. They would go to social studies and then they would finish their day with science. A sample schedule, could they be in different places? What does this mean for grade 7 and 8? Very similar. Except now here they're having, instead of a music choice, it becomes a truly elective piece. It could be music. It could be choir and orchestra for a student based on the A day, B day schedule. We have many students who take multiple instruments or in multiple performances, have that opportunity to do so with this structure. FIAD is still the required in grade 7 and 8. so they would still do that. But they would still follow a very similar schedule. What we have to do at the building is when do we put that lunchtime and advisory for each grade level so that we can feed 850 students? And how does that fit into our structure? So that's where lunch and advisory might be prior to lunch and so forth for grade levels.
And really with this schedule, Rob hit on it, the 4 electives comes down to 2 elective period per day for grade 6, 7, and 8.
All of the class periods are equal intervals of time. Passing time, we've made 3 minutes and has been very functional at the middle school. I know they worry about it at first, and after the first week, they're just fine. If we have more minutes, they find ways to use those minutes, and if we give them 3, they get to where they need to be. But what does it mean for a teacher? Teachers teaching those 5 class periods, so over on the right, kind of going how we looked at a student, depending on what content they would be it an elective course, be it a language arts, be it math, the green would represent those courses that they're teaching. For a math, science, social studies, language arts teacher, that's that year-long class. For an elective person, that's where it would alternate A and B day. Advisory being that 29-minute piece, all hands on deck, everyone available and accessible to do that at grade levels, possibly multiple grade levels, depending on how the ultimate schedule plays out. And then you'll see 2 areas of professional time and prep time. Opportunities, grading, meeting with your colleagues, PLC, what does that entail? And then the 2:36 to 3:15 professional time, staff learning opportunities, Blackboard Ultra support, all those pieces that fall into that professional time along our contractual day. So seeing how the student schedule and the teacher schedule mirror each other and having students be available for staff and staff be available for students.
Before we go on, can you talk to what you would imagine in the master scheduling process? So if you go to the teacher piece and it's content, let's say I teach, 6th grade math. And so would I likely be teaching 6th grade math, 6th grade math, 6th grade math? Or what do you see that looking like?
With the optimizing piece and bringing in more staff and more students, the opportunity of that staff to really put them in their best performance area, teachers would be teaching singular contents if at all possible. We've been able to do that in some areas and in some places to put them in their best area so that a math teacher would be able to teach all math and not teach some math, teach science, come back to math. Being able to have that content area and to really hone their skills in that area in the craft that many are very passionate about. Not saying others can't do multiple things, but this would allow us to really schedule strategically to keep people in one content area and hopefully no more than 2 if the necessity was there. Elective teachers would be in with potentially no longer needing to be a singleton. I'm the only tech ed teacher, so I am teaching, as Laura described, 10 different courses. I might be teaching 5 and Ken teaching 5, splitting grade levels to be able to really strategically be prepared for the group of students that I see. So those are opportunities that would be present once we dig into numbers and actual building of the master schedule. So putting people in the best places for the greatest level of success. We also looked at with optimizing the piece about transportation and initial discussions early on where do we extend the school day in the morning, in the afternoon, and what does that look like? Confirming with the transportation provider that starting up to 10 minutes earlier is still an option. And as you saw, we looked at going to 7:25, not the full 10 minutes at this point. We did also confirm that extending the middle school day was not an option based on bus routes and where those things would go. Currently, our students enter the building at 7:05. They transition at 7:20. This is really not taking away instructional time. It's their time to get from off the bus into the building to their first period class, which is still more than the 3-minute transition during the school day. So, after years of attempts, I can say that, with middle school schedule and many different iterations, as we were looking back to it, I think I've taught in 4 different schedules, led in 3 different schedules, and what works and what doesn't, and truly as the group here talked about, it's really the people who deliver it and the structure that we create to be able to do that. We had some missteps in previous areas, not due to lack of willing and wanting, Maybe it was curricular resources, maybe it was readiness and support for staff. But looking at all those pieces made us really think about what do we need to do better this time. And I think the work we've done and the collaboration of all of our professional staff to gather input from it. We met with a larger team of educators at the start of the year, even as most recently as yesterday, to gain further impact and questions and wonders that they may have, garnering insights to their feelings of readiness. It's the structure, the 6-period day is the structure that can support our curriculum, our teacher expertise, and ultimately the mission and vision of our students that we started with in the beginning. We can confidently recommend as an administrative team the 6-period day schedule, and that will be our recommendation. I want you to think about this too. We're going to have questions and feelings and wonderings, roadblocks we come across, uncertainties, those things, those fine details that we have to work out. It's because it's new and different. It is by no means because we can't do it. And we have the professional staff to be able to do it. So it's not about can we, it's about how well we will do it and what success we will garner from our students. So with that, some opportunity for discussion and what our next steps would be if our recommendation moves forward.
Go ahead. I know Carrie has lots of comment.
I'd like you to go first.
I do too. Well, I'm going to start with just maybe a real obvious question, but for next year's, well, let me start with this. First of all, this was an incredible presentation, and I'm grateful to all of you for the work that you and your teams have put into this, because I know this is not easy, and people want to make comments or suggestions or give recommendations to what the schedule should look like, speaking from experience. But I know that you're trying to make all of the math in the background, and I appreciate that greatly. So there will always be lots of opinions about how this could be better or maybe could be different. I think what you've done is taken a realistic, experience-based, evidence-based, and practical and reasonable approach to how can we do this and how can we do it in a way that it's equitable and it's accessible and it's a great positive experience for our students and their families. So I have more to say about that later, but before I ask my very silly question. For next year's 8th graders, will there be some attention to how we handle language for them? How's that? So that's already been taken into consideration. And for transfer students, so going forward a year, skip a year, if someone's coming into the district, and I don't know what that looks like, if that's 10 or 15 or so kids, in an 8th grade year, but what would that be an e-achieve pathway for them if we didn't have a language?
Specific to world language, are you speaking? Yeah, I think e-achieve would probably be, depending on the number of students, right? If we had, 20 students, maybe we'd very much look at offering a course someplace, but e-achieve might be our first option.
Yeah, to answer that, we also get students that come from German immersion school. We have quite a few, and so e-achieve is the path where we have a conversation about what are the trade-offs for taking that, but we've been able to make that work with a few German immersion students that come to us.
That's great.
Can
Yeah, I
one
mean,
of you
I've-
talk,
yeah.
sorry, can one of you talk about how you would schedule for 8th graders who currently are in a foreign language for current 7th graders continuing in the foreign language for next year?
Yeah, so our current 7th graders are taking potentially global perspectives currently as a 7th grader, and moving next year, they would still have level 1 to be able to make that transition to the high school. So there would be a level 1 for our current 8th graders and the level 1A for the 7th graders to transition into 1A, 1B, so that a 7th grader next year continues into 8th grade and would be then on the same pathway. So we have to be cognizant of those 7th graders currently that didn't have the opportunity for a first semester. So being able to run both simultaneously with really talented staff to do it, to be able to move that forward.
Okay. I'll let Mrs. Kozlowski go, and then I have more.
I was thinking back when we first met to talk about all of this, and I was thinking about coming off the heels of the high school, which we commended the amount of work that went into that and the research and how that went off. And I like that we've got life lessons that we can pass down. This presentation was outstanding. The analysis in it, understanding the teacher experience, the student experience, and understanding that with the common goal of where we need to get. And it shines on me a couple of the key pieces for us as a district, which is third grade and eighth grade. And when I take a look at the electives that we had, and we all love the electives. I mean, I think I've talked to all of you that I went to Horny and I took all of the things. My parents still have the magnets from metal cutting or whatever that was. But the fact is that the fundamental core of why we're here is the education and the math and the ELA, and making sure that the students have dedicated time to really get that strength in the foundation of that, as well as being able to have access to the fun things that they can expand on when they hit the high school. The data you presented on the day in the life of was just fantastic. And I think, like, I don't have truly a single question about the schedule that you're proposing, why it makes sense, how it's going to impact staff and students, how it's going to balance things out, where we're going to go, and ultimately see us hit the metrics and the milestones that we need these kids to hit when they hit it. Kelly did hit the point that I had, which is always kind of the same thing that we had when we did a lot of the math, where we started at high school first and then we came back to middle school, and you get these gap kids. And I think she called that out as just making sure we understand who they are and how we make sure that we're pulling them along. I had a whole, I just kept going on my smiles. It was really, really well done. And we did hear from the community on concerns about certain things and how this would look and feel for the students. But honestly, I think we've covered everything. You've looked at everything. We understand where things are going to hit, how they're going to hit, where they're going to go with such precision that I expect that there's going to be wonderings and observations and things that don't. I think we're crazy if we sit in any type of thing and think that there's not going to be stuff that doesn't come up that we're like, all right, how do we pivot? Where do we go? But I do fully trust that you guys have thought through all of that. This was fantastic. I think quite honestly, the transition from middle school to high school, I think was where the focus was on this too. I think is going to be helpful. I'll stop.
Mrs. Koenig.
Thank you. I just have just a couple quick questions. Looking at first the teacher schedule, I realize that there's a prep after school and a prep embedded somewhere during the day, and I did hear you comment. Someone said, "Oh, we have our PLCs and all these other things." That one prep period, though, is extremely important for teachers to have with no interruption during the day. So, I'm assuming that maybe you got some of this feedback, but for example, if I have prep, after lunch, my period, I wouldn't have a PLC planned that day, and then later that after school have an OTL. It would be because teachers need that time, especially during the day. To be able to reset and just regroup, especially with middle school. I speak from a lot of experience there. I just wanted to make sure that we're not, the hour that they're getting for that prep time is whether it's before or after school, they have to have that uninterrupted. And after school, it's not even a full hour. But I just want to make sure that that's still being taken into consideration, because there's a lot of prep involved, and even though the courses are going to be the same, there's a lot of grading involved, there's a lot of things involved, there's a lot of preparation for class. I just want to make sure that time is still, especially during the day, that prep time is still sacred for them. So I'm sure that they've given you that feedback. And
Oh, yes.
okay.
But it's a credit to them being very straightforward with that and that need to be able to do the job very, very well. And we've talked about how do we schedule PLCs, and sometimes we use that term a little too loosely, and people have grown greatly in how they use those times to be more effective and efficient. But also too, as leaders, I think the key word is professional, in treating them as professionals and expecting the professionalism to do that. if we give, that's an expectation they have of us as well. So to bring that out and to know they're going to grade on certain days, and they're going to be with their math PLC on other days, and they're going to be in a team learning session on others, that's our job too, as part of that support, to make sure that's what we hold true to so that they can do this.
Awesome, yep.
Yeah, the other piece, because I think, like, the PLCs are so important to the work that we've been able to do with all the new curriculum and just the work that we are doing. That's going to happen, right now it happens during the school day. That's what that after-school time is. So we would not be doing PLCs during the school day, because I think that's one of your big concerns. Because we do a lot of PLCs right now, and we'd also probably be looking at pulling back on some of those and really focusing on, just like at the high school, where it's, this is my core thing that I'm doing, this is who I'm going to PLC with, not every single group.
Sure, yeah, and I like to hear that because, yeah, I can see the PLCs and, you know, the OTLs and all the things that happen after school, but during the day, even just to go use the restroom or just, teachers just need that mental break, you know, somewhere in their day to just, you know, reset, go run around and do what they need to do, call a parent, whatever it is, they just need that time. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are being really responsive to that. The other comments I wanted to make about the general music and the idea of the students having to take a music course, and I know that that is a requirement. Again, I've witnessed many general music classes that had been in my classroom. I'm hosting the group, really being a class that, although well-planned by the teacher, it had nothing to do with that, complete disinterest, massive behavior problems. You could tell they didn't want to be there. I love the idea of restructuring and doing like an appreciation, exactly what you said, Ms. Ryan, where maybe you're looking at, you know, history of, you know, how you know, different genres came about, just making it more interesting. But is there a curriculum that exists right now? Is that something that, would teachers be having to curate that? Or like, is there something out there other than just general music?
Yeah, there are. Again, I'm going to be working with my the music coordinator, and she's going to put together a team. The teachers are really actually interested in building this, so there's a couple that they can take a look at, and I'm sure pull some from the general music course originally too as well. But really thinking about taking, you know, I think that in some of the music teachers I've talked to, they have even said, well, the class wasn't maybe really well developed, you know, so that was part of the problem as well. So I'm really taking a focus on that. They have a new digital program that they're using in band and choir right now, and they plan on incorporating that into the class. So they have a lot of really good ideas.
And that's awesome, because I would agree, they're probably still using the same one that was there when I was there. But that you're right, it wasn't a very well-developed curriculum. I think the kids did lose interest, and I can see why. So if that is up for review at some point, I would like to see that, anything you bring forward, that you find something great, bring that forward as soon as possible, because I think that's going to be key to making that class work. You know, and if they have to take music, at least they're going to be interested and really enjoy it. So that's, I think, I had one more, but it might pop later, but that, I'm good for now.
I have two other things just to kind of share. Maybe you didn't ask this specifically, but I think hits on some of your questions. One of the questions we got from teachers was about subbing, and because at every school, we do our best to have subs and coverage for all of our classes. And while we would like to say that prep time during the day wouldn't be used for that, we don't have a crystal ball. I can tell you this year in the first quarter, we had a higher fill rate than we had in previous years, but there was also more teacher absences for whatever reason. Maybe it was nicer, more sickness. But the team has committed to doing what they do now, which is there's a list and a triage-like plan. And so if someone is not really interested in spending their prep time that way, they would be like down on the list and maybe not every day. You know, it wouldn't be a regular occurrence. But I just want to be honest that that's a piece and a wondering out there. We just can't predict everything, but we continue to always work on our fill rate with our substitutes. The other thing I was hoping Laura can talk a little bit about, that professional time at the end of the day, the 2:36 to 3:15. What we haven't shared is the possibility for a little bit more vertical alignment with the high school.
So I think Kent kind of said what I was going to say about our main goal is to move middle school PLCs, not during the day, during their prep time, but to that 2:36, 3:15 time. And with our hope, our goal, and our intent is that they have one focus, sixth grade math, that they'd really only have one PLC that they would need to attend. Right now, the middle schools use this time on Mondays for OTL, staff meetings, trainings, those kind of things. And that's probably really what they're going to continue to do, is say those Mondays are going to be staff meeting or staff time, which gives us an opportunity, because, high schools have that Monday professional time, to have some vertical alignment, and we'll be able to have meetings 6/12 now, which we just have I don't know, since my time here, have not had. So that will be a tremendous thing for us to have. It'll be important, and they are aware then that Mondays, that prep time is pretty sacred to teachers. If we're already going to use that Monday, after school time, that has to be pretty sacred. And then they would have a PLC one day a week, and the other 3 days would be their prep time, their professional time.
I did remember the third thing. I remembered the third thing I was going to ask. So I'm going to self-admit, I'm very hung up on the whole advisory every single day piece, only because I speak from experience that I feel like there's some great things about it, but it wasn't always utilized what I would consider to be the best use of minutes for student learning. And I'm hoping that as time has gone on, it's changed. It probably has, but is there? I know there's a plan to one of the days maybe having some, kind of school-wide unification, a concept, exploring careers, doing some, tutoring. Is that something that is also going to be linear, kind of thought out and planned out? And is
Yeah.
that accessible to parents, so parents can kind of see, okay, well, this Monday, you're going to be talking about this, or, is that something that they'll be able to see as well?
Yeah, there's a whole team that works on organizing all the different subjects and what goes when. And so this would just give different light to that team's work over spring, during Winter Institute, and over summer of what that would look like. But the schools would be in alignment of what is covered, during a certain time. And like I said earlier, potentially using more of September around some of those basics, the PBIS stuff, anything around AVID, that school-wide strategies to really launch that before we get into this particular schedule for each week. So that was a piece. Do you want to?
Yeah, I'd love to add a little bit, because we've spent a lot of time on the advisory calendar, like hours and hours in the summer. It's really evolved. Like, we went from when I first got here, we didn't have advisory, and then we brought it back. And then it was the first year was a little wonky, and we've really flushed it out. We've gotten teacher input, student input. We have a calendar that's very clear, very specific on what needs to be done. The whole beginning, like you said, September is very culture building, collaborative. We do our safety drills, all the things that have to be covered. And then it's all structured and routinized. So Mondays are always team building. It's always coming back from the weekend. Where are we at? Setting ourselves up for success. And then Tuesdays we go into our Compass Navigate 360 lesson. And then Wednesday is like the digital citizenship and the ACP, college and career. And then Thursday's IXL diagnostic, and Friday we're planner check or binder check, so AVID school-wide. And that's our every week throughout the course of the year. So it's been going really well. We're really happy with it. So we feel like we can pare down some of the pieces that maybe got a little too long or weren't as engaging, and really focus on those meat and really engaging pieces to make sure the kids have a chance for.
Awesome. I love that. I love hearing that. I'm a fan then, if that's what's going on now. I'm a fan.
Okay. I have a couple more things. Do you have a couple more things, or you're? Okay. So whatever the scope and sequence is for the music 6 or whatever we're calling it, that it's because it's not general music appreciation.
Music appreciation, I think, is what we'll be calling
And
it.
this is all intended for next school year.
Yes.
So I assume that will come here first.
Yeah, so that's part of our next steps, if you can go to that slide, is really having conversation with you, Dr. Piasek, and the committee around what that looks like. For most of the elective changes, we'd like to take the meat of the individual classes now and shift them differently. So rather than bringing one class at a time to teaching and learning, I'd like to talk through the idea of bringing like the whole catalog with all of the electives together so you can see what it looks like. And then for right now, we would have in the course catalog, you know, the big overarching names of the classes for students to pick, knowing that it would be, you know, a variety of things in that. So I would look to have a conversation around how we can do that more efficiently as a group, or maybe it's by pathway or something like that. I'm open to ideas, but I think that would be the most effective way and then to see the whole picture.
Yeah, I would like to do that because I don't want to get in a situation where we're bottlenecked to approve a whole bunch of new things a month before the school year starts, right? And I also think some of those course descriptions are important so we can also help students make decisions about what they want to be choosing. And some of it maybe we're just shifting standards, you know, from one course here to be split between a few, and I think that might be the case in the art pathway and some others. But yeah, I think the sooner that we could have a plan for doing that, and I can also agree that maybe not taking it course by course, but pathway by pathway. We've got time, but we're going to quickly not have time. So
Right.
We don't have to.
We have already started some of that work. Molly, who was here earlier, has been instrumental along with all the other coordinators, given some thought. Really talking with each of the department leaders too for those content areas, asking them their ideas, like should we offer more of 2D art and a 3D art, or should we just do Art 6 and Art 7? So the coordinators have already started getting their wheels turning, and we'll actually have Summer Institute for some of those teacher groups. Just kidding, Winter Institute in February for some of those teacher groups to start working on that if this is approved. But overall, what we would do is some of our next steps is we would finalize our course catalog as best we can. We're already started to revise the course selection sheet to potentially be aligned. And then we would look at a common timeline for our middle school students to complete the course selection sheet for next year. We look at end of January, beginning of February. The team had said in the past there was a large window. We can shorten that up. Just here's the information, get it done, you know, make your courses, send it home information. So those are all things that we've started to work on, but we also didn't want to get too far down the road. So we're looking at Winter Institute. We have time right now during those PLCs, you know, we have time, and we've already talked about using summer, like teacher hourly pay. Oftentimes we have curriculum work done in the summer, and so if a department or a team has a lot more work to do beyond the school year in preparation for August, we would look to the team to put together a proposal on, hey, we think we need 3 days to do this, this, and this, you know, and then the coordinators do work with them on that.
yeah, I think that process of choosing electives is a really important thing for the students. So we don't want to rush them through that. Also, if parents have been through a middle school cycle or two, they may have some expectations about what that's going to look like. So over communication would be really important. And we're also asking them to make other decisions in the process. So I feel very good about making this change in line with some of the other building changes, because I think that just resets everything together versus trying to change one thing and then trying to come back and change something else the next year. And I think I maybe just want to conclude by, well, I got a couple of things, but part of why this works, and even in addition to adding the new music offering, is because we're going to have capacity to fill those sections and to offer a little bit more variety than if we had 60% filled and, you know, we're trying to balance the electives and the availability of teachers. And so while that may be a controversial statement, I do think the reality of having a decent student capacity in those buildings is what allows us to offer a little bit more of this. I'm very happy to see the emphasis on math, I did want to just comment briefly on the IXL proposal. I agree with that. When we did it, it was definitely to have something to fill those gaps. We were coming off some of the COVID learning losses and transitions. So that was never intended to be a long-term solution. I also think that now we're a couple of years into iReady, and those iReady assessments give us what some of those IXL gap assessments were giving us. So we have the tools for our fifth graders coming in. We kind of know if some of those foundational pieces are missing. And I think with Desmos, we also have the ability to do some of that assessment. So I think it's also really good time that with the shift to the two traditional middle school buildings, the standardization of the curriculum, the flowing up of iReady and some of the elementary pieces that we have now, everybody's coming in with the same foundation. It just seems like it makes sense to make this shift now. And seeing those extra minutes put towards some of those foundational curriculum pieces makes me really happy to see, because obviously we're seeing growth in elementary now. We don't want the kids to stagnate in middle school. So I think it's going to be great. Anything else?
I was going to talk about IXL.
Oh, okay. Okay. I know we were here when we did the IXL thing. I can't remember. You might have been too, but it's time. And we can buy individual seats for IXL if we need them, is my understanding. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Yeah, okay.
Okay, and I just want to also say how happy I am to see social studies receiving its regular amount of time. I know back in the beginning, we were looking at cutting that, and that was like a dagger, because there's so many important things that are taught in that class, and to see it get its worth with everything else, I think is, very to me, very powerful, and I think it's really important. So I'm glad to see that came back as a full course.
Just for out of an abundance of clarification, so there will no longer be randomized language for sixth graders, like where they get assigned to French or Spanish. This is going to be
So when you saw that there was like a world cultures piece, so it's, again,
that
exposure.
replaces that.
Exposure.
Yeah, I love it. So they can get exposed to French or Spanish and other things and make those decisions independently. I love that. Thank you. Okay, worth noting.
I motion to approve the middle school schedule as presented.
Second.
All right, any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes 5-0. Thank you all very much for your effort.
Thank you.
Very well done. Thank you. Okay. Would there be any recommendations for future meetings? All right. Seeing none, that concludes our business for this evening. So we will meet again for the Teaching and Learning Committee on Tuesday, February 3rd here in the boardroom. Thank you, everybody.